Hello and welcome to Backlinking, the PKM podcast. In today's podcast episode, we are diving into the problem with new applications, like applications in alpha, beta, and I am currently using one, but as you might know, I have been trying to figure out my productivity system, and therefore I've been using and testing out a lot of different applications. And I set like a target date, which is closing up now. It is the 1st of July. I am currently filming this video the 21st of June. So we are getting really close, and I am starting to figure it out. I have actually started to figure it out a long while ago, but I just needed to test one other thing. And I went ahead and I bought the lifetime plan of By Design, which is a newer application, which I really like and I recommend to a lot of people. I still think the lifetime plan was worth it. And in my case, I talked about this a lot. I buy lifetime plans because I have the insurance of if it doesn't work out, I will still save a lot of money whenever I do videos on different applications because whenever I do videos on some applications like Supernotes, for example, last year I purchased a monthly plan wanted to every time I wanted to do a video or wanted to do something around Supernotes, I would purchase a monthly plan, and I did this for a lot of applications. Now I've been lucky enough for at least a few applications to have like gifted yearly plans, so I can do videos on them. But in general, I have not been getting those, so I have to pay for pay for the subscriptions, which makes sense, honestly, that it isn't that big of a problem. But it makes it so that if I purchase a lifetime plan, I have the insurance of if it doesn't work out for me personally, I will use it a lot for YouTube videos. And I still think like By Design is a great application. I'm still playing around with it a little, but it brings me to my point. By Design is a newer application, and I'm using that as an example. But um, when I tested By Design into my system, I actually had three applications in a really early stage. Like one of them was in closed beta. My browser Dia is also in beta for Arc users now, but I have been using it for a little longer than that. So my browser, my productivity or task management application, which is also an email agent, which I'm paying a lot of money for, was also in a closed beta. So it started to get like too much with these new applications, and I started bumping into a couple of problems. Um, the main one was that some of my applications they looked different every week. Like they would change every single week. One week they would look one way or have one set of features, and then I would have another feature that I would love to use, but honestly I didn't need it. But I would love to use it anyways, and we started like getting more and more features and more things, which ended up changing my workflows a lot. And that is one of the problems with new applications in development. There are two main ones. The first one is that they need to add a lot more features to get feature parity with a lot of the other applications. And some of those features will change your workflow. For example, if an application adds backlinking, it would totally change how I use the application. And I would love to then go back to a lot of my notes to link them together. So that is one example of it. Another good example of it is when they just add too many features. And that isn't just new apps, but it is something I'm scared of in every single application now. Like one of the things I like about MyMind, and also one of the founders of MyMind, he wrote this article called Death by a Thousand Buttons, where he talked about the fact that like founders or people developing these applications, they want to add one more feature and one more feature and one more feature because it makes the application better, like it betters the value proposition. But in the end, you end up just having a slow application that does not work exactly the way you want. And I think uh, a lot of people or a lot of applications end up there. Another good example of this is Reflect, the founder, or I think it is the founder of Reflect. He said something like my biggest job is to say no to features. That is the biggest job, and I feel like by design isn't an example of that. But I've seen many other applications that just add way too many features, and the app gets bloated and it gets hard to use. And like Arc is an example of that. I know that a lot of people loved Arc, but it had so many features that just a few people used. And the point here is that a lot of productivity applications, especially newer ones, it feels like they just add more and more and more and more, and it never stops. And that is something I'm scared of in every application, but especially in newer ones, because it isn't clear which direction they're going at least not at the point of me testing them. So I've made a conscious choice to only choose applications that are really clear on what they are not. Like they are really clear on what they're not going to do. And with that, they also get really clear on which direction they're headed. Because of course I want new features, but I want new features that fits the core value proposition of the application. So that is one thing I'm scared of with newer applications. That is the fact that they get really, really bloated, and also the fact that they change a lot of things all the time and aren't clear on their philosophy. Like I've seen applications or companies abandon an application to go to another one. I've seen applications like totally change their direction. Mem is a great example of that. Like first they started off with a user interface that had things like people inside of it and tasks as well. Then they changed that to be something different and rely heavily on the chat. And I honestly, I get why applications do that, and I get why we end up in those applications. And I think like those newer applications, they have a place in your workflow, but I struggle to use them as main applications for that specific reason, unless, like I said, they are very, very clear on where they are not going. Like I had this to-do list or task management application I am currently using has a closed beta where you meet up with the founder and discuss some of the issues you've had and like some of the feature ideas. And I love the fact that he is really clear on what they're not going to add. Like I don't have a backlog in that application. I have my days, I can place like my tasks on top of my days, but there isn't a backlog there, which is really like it annoys me a little, but the application is just so good. It might come in the future, but like that isn't the only example. There are many other examples of like things they are sure that they're not going to add. Instead, like they're adding integrations with things like Zapier. For example, we talked about that yesterday. And I think that is a much better way of going, but that is a whole nother discussion. I will bring it back to my point. The point being that for me to use an application that is in a really early stage, I really need the application to have a clear vision on where it is headed, what it is going to do, and especially where it is not headed. I don't want an application that tries to do it all, like be an all-in-one application with backlinks, with a Pomodoro timer, with background music, with just every feature you can find. Bright does that, and I think Bright does it. Like I think parts of the application is great. So it is an application that has everything from expense management, like you can budget inside of the app, you can journal with prompts, you can meditate inside of the application. It tries to be everything. And whenever I've used it, like five or six of the features are great. The note-taking experience isn't as good as I would want it to. Like, I would much rather have fewer features, to be honest. But again, there is a place for applications that try to do it all. I just struggle with them personally, and these are, of course, my personal thoughts. Um, so that is two of the things I am really scared of. One other thing is that like the application might not be there. Like there might not be a use case for your application, and it might just shut down. We've seen a lot of applications shut down. I got an application called Dot, which is now turning into Dots. That application shut down because they wanted to do something else. Arc is another great example, and that one is like much bigger because a lot of people relied on Arc and it just went away. Um, Clover, my favorite all-time note-taking app, which is now part of Figma, which I'm also using. But I really liked Clover Notes. It was amazing. It isn't available any longer. I've seen a lot of these applications either get acquired or just fall apart. There are a lot of examples where there just wasn't a market for that application, and that can happen, and it is really hard when that happens with your productivity application that you rely on, because we want to stick with our productivity applications for longer. That has been the whole point of me testing out so many different ones, is to find one I can stick with for a long period of time. I'm thinking like 3 to 5 years, but you might add more things, and there are things you might want to change that can more easily be changed. But like your core applications, I'm thinking task management and also note taking you should stick with for a long time, but that gets really hard when you don't know whether or not an application is going to be there for a long time. Another application I've like recently tested out is Space Stack, which I think is an amazing idea, and I think it will be so good. And for a lot of people, it already is. But as I have talked with people testing out the application, it isn't quite there yet. And again, that is another example of like it is in an early stage. You need to expect things like bugs. You need to expect the fact that it is a little slower than you're used to. Many of these smaller applications have, or newer applications have small teams, so the development might be slower. And I think they should be, especially for people really into productivity, should be a part of your workflow, but I can't rely on them completely. Like I had this example of a Lazy, which is another like really early stage productivity applications. As you can, as you might have figured out by now, I've tested a lot of them and tried using them as my go-to. Um, and I really liked Lazy, but the mobile app was in a test flight version. So I had the test flight version on my phone, and they forgot to update it. So the app, or I don't know if they forgot or they didn't do it a day in advance, but when I woke up, the application was not available any longer, and I needed to capture a couple of things. Back then, it didn't have a web version, and I sat in a meeting and I had like 5 6 tasks, and I could not capture those tasks into my application. And having something like that happen is not only really annoying, but it disturbs your workflow. You have to, like, the reason why we write things down, we put them into these applications, is because we don't rely on our memory to remember them, or we want to offload them. If I can't do that, and I can't like trust my note-taking and productivity application to be there when I need it, it is really hard to use that application. And that is also really specific to my use case, because I try to offload as much as possible. That is really important to me. So I struggle with applications being unstable or not being available, and that is why a lot of productivity quote unquote experts or people talking about productivity tools don't actually use a lot of the newer tools as their go-to applications. That doesn't apply to like every category of productivity app, but especially in like task management, note taking, that is really hard. So I am trying to do fewer, that is my point, fewer early stage applications as my personal workflow. But I will still have a subscription to several of them because uh, there are so many great ideas out there. I want to support the development and I also make videos about them. So um, it makes it easier to justify the price or justify the subscription. But I think that like covers it for today's video. The point of all of this is that there is some issues with early stage applications, and I'm trying to avoid having too many of them in my workflow. It is okay to have maybe one or two if you have five, six productivity applications, or one if you have three productivity applications, but it is really hard to completely rely on early stage applications. That covers it for today's episode. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. And before I go, I just wanted to mention that this does not mean that you should never purchase subscriptions for early stage applications. They need money to develop. And if you find one you really like, it might be worth just using that application. But in my use case, because I rely so heavily on my productivity tools, it is really hard to put everything into early stage apps. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.